my brother were always close. I had no idea that my brother was capable of attempted murder and rape. He never gave any signs, and it seemed like an otherwise good person. Let me give some context. My brother was 14 years old at the time and my sister was 4. My family was on a trip to Washington, and my sister was really excited. On the way there, my brother was listening to music on his MP3 player. My sister saw something that interested her. I don't remember exactly what, and she tried to get my brother's attention. My brother couldn't hear her, and my sister, being a toddler, slapped the MP3 player, trying to get it out of his hands. My brother was caught off guard, and he dropped it into the bag of McDonald's he had had. It got covered in ketchup, and my brother started yelling at my sister until she cried, and my parents had to break it up. Later that night, we got to a hotel, and I fell asleep immediately. I woke up in the middle of the night to my sister crying. I looked around and saw my sister bleeding everywhere. My mother asked what had happened to her, and my sister said that my brother tickled her, and then proceeded to cut her with a knife. I jolted up and looked around more closely. My brother was missing. My mother rushed my sister to the hospital, and after a bit of surgery, my sister was all right. However, one thing I hadn't noticed was that there was bleeding at her rear end, and the doctor said she had bruises that looked like something a rape victim might have. We never found my brother, and neither did the police, until 6 months later when his body was found in a lake in Canada, of all places, with self-inflicted wounds. My older brother and my mom purposely murdered my father back in August of 2016 by pouring antifreeze into his drink. It caused him to have 15 seizures and 20 heart attacks in 15 minutes, and they weren't even sorry. My brother looked at my dad straight in the eyes without an ounce of remorse or guilt as he handed him that drink. He killed the man who raised him as his own, even though my brother was not his son, and he never hesitated once because it was my mother who told him to do it, all because of money. Sounds unbelievable until you realized who my brother and mother were. Me and my 2 sisters had been taken from our parents a year earlier due to them being alcoholics. Our mother and brother constantly abusing us and our dad. Our mother would hit us, burn us with her cigarettes, beat my dad because he medically could not work. He had been diagnosed with epilepsy and started drinking because he thought it was less of a man for it. Threw empty booze bottles at us, and even hit me in the head with empty booze bottles so hard that I got a minor concussion because I was trying to get her off of my younger sister. Our brother was even worse. Even tried to legitimately kill us on several occasions. Hit me with an actual car when I was 7 years old, and even strangled me at 9. I had to punch him in the throat to get him off of me, but my sister got the worst of it by far. He had set her on fire twice, thrown a hammer at her head and broken her fingers and toes slowly, one at a time, all in the same year. It was a messed up childhood. Sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, right? Well, I can swear to every god I believe in that this is true. And the worst part about this, they're still walking free. Despite all the evidence we have against them, they are still walking around like nothing ever happened. I'm pleased to say that my brother has been arrested for drug possession, and that him and my mother are being reinvestigated for my father's murder, among other charges. Hopefully they will be put away permanently this time so they can't hurt anyone else. I live in an apartment complex that is pretty upscale. It has plenty of standalone buildings with 4 apartments in each, 2 on the ground floor and 2 on the upper floor. The only thing I don't like is many of the buildings have basements that connect the buildings to each other from the basement doors. All 3 of the other tenants in my building are single girls, and I'm a single man. We usually keep to ourselves. None of us are friends or really talk to each other. I think the 3 girls all have boyfriends because they're usually gone most weekends. This incident happened about 4 weeks ago. On Fridays, I usually will have a few drinks and play some video games or have a few buddies over. On this particular night, I was alone. I played my Switch and had a few strong beers. I was feeling pretty good and was just sitting on the couch in that sort of, do I have another or do I go to bed? I was playing on my phone for a minute when I heard pounding on my door. I froze and sat there, not hearing anything else. I just yelled, "Who is it?" Not an answer. Another loud pounding and I yelled, "Who is it?" No answer again. I started to get nervous and I slowly got up. I looked through my peephole and saw no one. Since I can't see left or right, I wasn't dumb enough to open the door and look, so I just put the chain lock on, which I barely do because it's an instinct for me to lock the deadbolt as soon as I walk into my apartment. Nothing else happened the rest of the night, but I'm semi-sobered up pretty quick. I didn't fall asleep for quite a while, even though I knew I was safe. The next week flew by and I just forgot about it, thinking it was just the girl and her boyfriend who lives beneath me. They were both potheads and I'd heard and seen them yelling and laughing in the parking lot multiple times before. Another Friday night where I'm drinking and playing video games. Suddenly, I heard the booming hits on my door again. This time I shout, "Okay, you're done." I go and grab a knife from the kitchen and as I'm grabbing it, I hear the pounding again. I shout, "Get out of here." As I walk towards the door, pounding my feet so they know I mean business, I fling open the door and I hear footsteps going down the main floor and decide to follow. Then I hear them going into the basement. I stop when I hear that, because there's no way I'm going down there. I run back into my apartment, lock all the doors and go into my porch, knowing I'll see a light go on in an apartment next to mine for whoever just ran home through these basements. No lights come on at all in any of them. This was about 2 a.m. when this happened. Nothing happened last week, but it's the weekend again and I'm a little freaked out, hoping it doesn't happen again tonight. This time, I have a baseball bat right by the door and I plan on charging out if it happens again. I have changed the names in this story because I'm not sure I'm allowed to even talk about this. This really happened to me. It feels good to finally get this out there. I've had so many other encounters, but nothing like this one. I mean, what would you expect being the only female working in a rural county jail? Definitely not this. So I'm a female corrections officer in a very small county in the Midwest. The county jail I work for houses maybe 25 people. Only one CO is on duty per shift. There's only one dispatcher, and normally only 2 deputies roaming the county. This still gives me chills and this happened months ago. Per usual, I came in on my morning weekend shift. I could hear talking from down the hall, but it was only one person talking to himself. I immediately head into my office and check the computers to see if we had anyone come in the dead of night. There was a new name in the system, so I look over at the monitor to check the cameras and see what this person is doing. He had been in the booking area all night, which was odd. No CO kept someone in there for more than an hour. Since our county is so small, we hardly have anyone come in. I immediately asked our dispatch who this person was. He responded saying that the overnight CO had to leave early for an emergency and that this person was booked in, but not dressed into his stripes and taken to a cell. Still, this guy was talking to someone that wasn't there. It gave me chills, but being a corrections officer and working for law enforcement, there wasn't much I haven't seen or heard, even in a small county. Especially ours, when we mostly end up with drug addicts and thieves. We do get the occasional domestic violence assault and 24-hour holds for investigation. I told the dispatcher that I was going to make breakfast and make him dress into the stripes after that. I walked through the jail door, radioing in, asking for each door to be unlocked. The dispatcher was pressing buttons so I can make my way through the jail. I end up in the kitchen where all the dry ingredients for breakfast was laid out on the table. I throw on some gloves and I start filling foam bowls with cereal. The kitchen was very close to the booking area, and I could still hear him talking, but now I could understand a little more of what he was saying. My name is John. I am 5 years old. This man was at least 50 years old and 6 foot tall. I didn't think anything of it and continued with my day. After serving breakfast to the very few inmates we had, I went to the booking area. I fished for my keys and went to our supply closet where we kept our stripes. I handed them to him and told him he needed to dress into them. This is where everything gets a little crazy. He starts talking in Arabic and telling me that he is a god. I just rolled my eyes and went on to tell him that he needs to get dressed, so I can put him in a cell. It wasn't unusual for people to talk in weird languages. I just assumed he'd smoked some bad meth or something. He responds, "I'm Lieutenant Smith." I nod my head and show him to the bathroom where he is supposed to change. I'm standing outside the door with my gun hand on my taser, because this guy really gave me the creeps. I can hear him talking about multiple 9/11 conspiracy theories and how he is on the run from the FBI. He was talking to himself, but not himself about it. After being in there for about 15 minutes, I radio in a male deputy to wrestle him out of there. Of course, they send me the one that is smaller than me. I'm about 5'5". This deputy has probably never weighed over 100 pounds and is a total rookie on a power trip. He comes into the booking area and kicks open the bathroom door. The deputy grabs the man who is fully dressed in his stripes and forces him to sit on the bench. The deputy motions for me to follow him outside of the jail part, so I did. Mr. Smith has a mental disorder where he has multiple personalities. He was found on the highway going 90 miles per hour and failing to stay in his lane. We assumed he was drunk and conducted a field test, which he failed. Of course, Saturdays is when the crazies come out to play, I thought. The sheriff has been here on the phone all morning. You are not to be alone with him. I nod my head and the deputy and I continue with our day. It was about 2 p.m. when all of a sudden, we heard loud thumps coming from the booking area. I look into the monitor and this guy is literally beating his head against a wall. Then he starts screaming, "Bring that girl back in here. Bring her back in here. I will tear her head from her spine." I am like freaking out at this point. I can hardly talk to him at all. He starts yelling again, "Bring her back in here. She ratted me to the feds. I can hear them." My heart was pounding. No way I was going in there. No way at all. The deputy and sheriff both busted in there. I was watching the cameras. He ran towards them and the sheriff pulled his taser. Taser, taser, taser. And shot him. He did not go down. "I'm gonna F you up," he kept yelling. The deputy that was smaller than me tried to wrestle him down. The sergeant came busting through the doors, and with all three of them they finally got him down and in cuffs. At this point I came in carrying our most effective strengths we call the wrap. It basically makes the aggressor look like a giant burrito. It's a lot more effective than a straitjacket. He laid there on the booking floor for about 20 minutes before he finally calmed down. Most of what came out of his mouth was nonsense. According to him, he was the chief of police for Los Angeles PD. He told our sheriff he was undercover. He was also head of Secret Service and head of the FBI. In reality, though, this guy was in the army and fought in Iraq. He ended up with some serious mental problems and started cheering on for the other team. They managed to transfer him to a local hospital for a 96-hour psych evaluation. A few weeks later, the sheriff called a mandatory meeting with all the other corrections officers. Turns out that the FBI really was after him, and he really was a horrible guy. I came face to face with a terrorist who was killed and wanted me dead, and I survived. This happened maybe 10 years ago when I was in my early 30s. I was standing in line at a local pharmacy to get my prescriptions. This is a small town and I am a regular here, so they know me on sight. I was behind a couple of people in line, and there were a couple of people behind me. I kept feeling a tickle in my hair on the back of my head, but every time I looked behind me, the guy there was a few steps back and looking at the floor. This happened several times by the time I was at the front of the line. The pharmacist told me she wanted to talk about my medication in the consulting room they had there at the time, since converted into a bathroom. I thought this was weird because we both knew I had been on this medication for years and would be for my life. Nothing new. I get back to the room and close the door, and she comes in from the door at the other side that leads from the pharmacy. She told me that the man behind me had been stepping forward, sticking his nose in my hair and smelling, before stepping back and looking at the floor. This shook me pretty badly, as this is such weird behavior, especially in my little town. The pharmacy staff insisted on having me wait there until the guy was distracted by another pharmacy employee, and they had a security guard walk me to my car and watch me drive off to make sure I was gone before a hair sniffer came out and saw what I was driving and what direction I was going. I still use this pharmacy, and some of the same people still work there. I will always be grateful that they took initiative to make sure I was safe that day.